Good afternoon, morning to everybody, those who are here and those who are joining us online. We are far behind time, so we have a lot of things to do, but I don't think we can do all of them, but we will try to go directly into the deep dive on the technical discussion on the subject that we are here to do today to discuss. So once again, thank you, Louis and the team for the opening ceremony. I will now invite the panelists to the front. We have some of them online. We have Dr. Chani from ICA. Okay. We have Dr. Christina Rambatis. And then we have our drone entrepreneur, Rose, as well online. Then we have Dr. Katumuri Ruth here. We have His Excellency Ambassador Professor Muhammadou Kah. We've been having problem after the test session to connect him. I'm not sure if he's on now, otherwise I hope he will join soon. So we have spent the first part laying the background for today's session. What we're going to do is we have another video that just gives us example of some of the enterprises in the Commonwealth, of the hundreds of agricultural and fisheries enterprises that we are trying to work with, or we are trying to support with digitalization. So what we're going to do is, because of time, instead of 5 minutes, my panelists, instead of 5 minutes, I'm not going to give you 5 minutes, I'm going to give you 2 minutes each. You will introduce yourself within that 2 minutes, tell us who you are, and then respond to the question. So I'll go straight to our panel. Thank you, Senior Director. So we have one more panelist, His Excellency Ambassador Professor Muhammadou Kah from the Gambia to WTO and UN in Geneva. I hope he's there. His Excellency, okay, His Excellency is there. He brings in two perspectives as a technical person in this area, as well as a political background. So I got in touch with him because of this reason. So His Excellency, we would like to know the policy implications of all that we've been talking about. Are there any policy implications for our member countries? If yes, what are some of them?
Certainly, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me loudly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, my machine crashed midway, so I missed some part of the interventions. But from what I've heard, since time is not in abundance, I would say that a couple of policy implications that needs to be factored. One is capacity and competencies, scaling up the actors and agents to be able to manage and maintain and provide access for a robust data infrastructure and the optimal utilization of data, as well as the emerging technologies. The technological aspect is also important in terms of its adoption. There are quite a number of emerging technologies that are relevant for smallholder farmers and artisan fisheries, for climate resilience, for operations of farms, for scaling up productivity. The tendency is to tend to focus more on data. And I think the policy implication is we will not yield the optimal desired outcome that will eventually bring efficiencies in the value chains and in the ecosystem just by focusing on data. So thus the importance of going beyond data to put in place a robust, smart, resilient, and agile data infrastructure across the Commonwealth. When we say data infrastructure, basically it's a set of fundamental facilities, the basic structure of a system that is necessary for access and exchange of agricultural data, as well as other forms of data that can impact agricultural data for decision making, user data and content data. Agriculture and fisheries data. The perspective is that agriculture or fisheries data consists of content data as well as user data. At the content data, it is derived from soil maps, agronomic data, weather data, fish catch data, market data, etc. The user data on farmers, on fishers, on traders, on consumers, on research networks, on extension networks, on financial institutions, and cooperatives. So these two types of data are essential elements for the data infrastructure. The challenges of data access, the current challenges are within the sector. It's not about the absence of data. There's abundance of data that exists, but the challenge is to have the right infrastructure to support data access and use. And this has policy implications for the Commonwealth. The current model is that each of the digital agriculture service providers is investing in content data and user data. If you have 20 service providers in Kenya, in principle, they are all profiling the same farmers. The result will be duplication of data, poor data quality as we are double counting the number of users we reach, waste of scarce resources, and the data is completely out of the hands of our national governments, etc. The future implications is unknown. However, there is a different perspective, an alternative model, where we need to have the national governments in Commonwealth countries to be involved in some way, not to start a new investment in user data generation or content data production. There are enough already in most of our countries across the Commonwealth. What is the coordinating role of our governments in the Commonwealth? What kind of data infrastructure that needs to be put in place to support the current data? Importantly, practical systems with national focus, and then connect them across the Commonwealth. One of the presenters talked about a very important aspect of the data infrastructure, which is connectivity. The digital divide and access to affordable broadband connectivity is a reality across the Commonwealth, and policies, smart policies, have to be in place to ensure that there is connectivity. The other aspect is interoperability of the data infrastructure so that actors and agents in the ecosystems and value chains in Senegal or in Kenya or in Cote d'Ivoire can be integrated and access and share this data in an open mechanism. So as part of the data infrastructure, open governance is also important. Also ensuring that we have smart data infrastructure that will enable our member states to begin to build climate-based digital platforms and services, or agriculture digital platforms and services, which provides huge opportunities for our youth folk, and to ensure that women are not left behind, not only in the connectivity side, but in the access of digital infrastructure for use of services that sits on digital platforms. The other policy implications along those lines is the policy regimes around data, around governance, around access. These need to be approached in a comprehensive and holistic manner across the Commonwealth. There needs to be emergence of partnering and collaboration of private sector and CSOs, as well as private players in the technological landscape that can have influences in digital platforms and services, because the infrastructure alone has to be harnessed. And to be harnessed, we have to build capacity, competencies with our youth who will build these services. Lastly, we cannot afford to have a policy mechanism around data infrastructure without ensuring that our learning institutions are equally equipped to be participants in building the landscape and the ecosystem. Because where the wealth creation and addressing real needs of the farmers and smallholder farmers or artisan fisheries is our ability to include them in the design, implementation, and build-up of services that can utilize a very robust data infrastructure. So I would say, Benjamin, this is data infrastructure is the future. Imagine what we can do if we build, connect, and sustain agriculture data infrastructure or fisheries data infrastructure across the Commonwealth for small states that are technologically equipped to be able to utilize real-time data from a very integrated and interoperable data infrastructure and share these data in a timely manner to extract intelligence that can feed into policy, that can feed into other related value creating activities that can uplift our people. So
Thank
the
you.
concept of data infrastructure should be, in my perspective, the focus rather than reducing it only to data and quality data. We have enough data, we have enough tools, we have enough applications. But if you don't have a robust, smart data infrastructure that is designed, built, factoring the farmers' needs, their requirements, and the services that are required, and use the tools that are emerging, such as IoTs, the Internet of Things, blockchains, machine learning algorithms, and use our youths to be participants in using these AI technologies. You talked about drone, and channel them to sit on this infrastructure and build platforms and services that can be of value to the farmers to influence the value chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency. I know if we give you the next 30 minutes, you continue to hammer these points, but because of time, we need to move on. Thank you once again for bringing those points together. I know there are people sitting here. I don't know if any of you have any question. If you have any question, by hands. Otherwise, I don't want to leave you behind. No questions from the audience here. 1 minute, if you have any concluding message. If you don't have to. If you have any concluding message.
I guess I just want to correspond with the ambassador's incredible remarks on data infrastructure and really how much of it is about putting together that infrastructure, that governance system, to be able to use the data for so many different purposes. It's not just about bespoke little projects, but really to use it and repackage it for different value chains, for government level initiatives and planning at so many multiple levels of governance. And so I just really wanted to highlight that and say I think that's incredibly important.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, okay. So, Ambassador, that's really very helpful feedback that you gave, because that reiterates the importance of working closely with the countries and also making the data relevant and also utilizing the data effectively, both in terms of project implementation as well as access to finance. And that's the example, the common sensing example that we had talked about works very closely in that regard. And it's very happy, it's encouraging to know that these are actually very relevant and this is what the countries are looking for. So thank you for your comments, Ambassador.
Thank you. Any online panelists. Okay, Dr. Cheney, just 1 minute.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I would also like to agree with what His Excellency said. However, while also recognizing that in some instances, for example, in some of the Caribbean territories, there is merit in actually gathering more data because of the resolutions and the breaking in time. So I don't think it's an either or. I think it's very context specific when you look at the data infrastructure and also updating it and getting the data resolution that is needed, particularly at a high resolution. Thanks.
I fully agree with you because just yesterday or the day before, I was talking to a lady from the Caribbean who is an expert in fisheries. And she mentioned the same thing. She said, look, the fisheries area, we are still lacking data. So yes, I agree. Yes, we need to take both approach. Prof, your last word.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I wish we had more time, but I just had some last minute thoughts that I wanted to recommend. One is placing digital infrastructure for digitalization at the core of national governments in the Commonwealth for growth and transformation, and put strategies and policies in place. The second one is creating a transparent and smart regulatory framework around data and around data infrastructure that will promote the development and confident use of data, quality data, as Chani mentioned, and as well as the utilization of digital technologies and services and limit to risk. Also, we need talent, we need competences. Digital infrastructure and digital services cannot be guided with weak talents. It requires talent. So therefore, the recommendation must be to expand the curricular and university program structure to spur digital innovation and development across the Commonwealth with AgTech. Also, I would say increasing investments in R&D. R&D is required to harness and create and extract value from a well-placed digital infrastructure. Because where the value creation is in the ability to have thought leadership and knowledge to create services that will be useful for the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Yeah, last minute, investing in the last mile infrastructure to bridge the digital divide. I think one of the panelists did mention that, because if you build the digital infrastructure and you want to utilize all these emerging technologies and there is no connectivity, there is no access, there is digital divide, where it matters in the rural communities where you have most of our smallholder farmers, the digital infrastructure will not yield its optimal value. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. We bring the session to an end. As Kirk said, this is just the beginning. We've started with digital climate advisory services. We're going to do that under different contexts like market linkages, financial inclusion, and advisory services. So we look forward to engaging with you. And if you have any question, please contact us, and we are willing to work with you to take this forward. Once again, thank you. Those who join us from Zoom, and only Christina is sitting here. Thank you for spending time with us. Okay, bye. Thank you.